What is going on, everybody? Brett Marshall, Isha Jerome, back here with you for another episode of Wildly Informed, a rare post-Minnesota Wild game recording because they decided that back-to-back Wednesday-Thursday games were the vibe this week. Maybe we should do it more often. Two big wins, 3-1 over Toronto last night, 4-0 tonight over Montreal. I'm sure we got a little bit to talk about with that game here before we get into everything, but we'll check in. Isha, how's it going tonight, my friend? A rare Thursday night for us, but happy to be here.
Yeah, I think this is the last week of a Wednesday game for the Wild for the season.
Okay.
There might be one more at like the most, but dude, the vibes are high because everybody knows how much I hate the Maple Leafs, so I was so happy that the Wild got a win, a tough win. And B, that they beat the Maple Leafs. And then back-to-back, what a fun game against the Montreal Canadiens. Like, the last two games have been so much fun, but this one in particular, I would say, like, against the Maple Leafs was a little bit more of a nail-biter. This one was just a fun game overall, and what a performance by the Flower, Marc-Andre Fleury. But I will say, and I tweeted this, I think the better moment actually featured a different French player. I think Freddie Gaudreau getting a goal in Quebec was a little bit more important, bigger than Marc-Andre Fleury playing his last game in Montreal for a team he's never even played for. But anyways, I was just being a little bit of a smart ass there.
Well, to give a little bit of, a hat tip to your point, I think it was last year when this also similarly happened, like when Montreal gave him the big send off and everything.
He was in Chicago when it happened.
Well, no, because they did it last year when Fleury started in Montreal too.
Okay,
like
so that's
yeah, but I think in the story, I think that was written afterwards, like Freddie Gaudreau was interviewed, and like Freddie said he got emotional because Fleury was a player that he had looked up to growing up, being a Quebec native. So to your point, it is kind of cool probably for him to like, hey, put the icing on the cake of like a big night and like, fellow, I don't know what they call them, Quebecians,
Quebecois.
Quebecois. Yeah. Whatever they call them up there, the French-speaking Canucks. So a cool moment, but yeah, I mean, you can't write it any better, right? He returns to his essentially home province and gets a shutout and has like a couple of his vintage saves. He has
a couple. That's what was crazy.
The diving poke check, the double pad stack, like it was just. I mean, the Wild made it pretty easy in front of him too tonight. I think that was the story with kind of both these two games in Toronto, Montreal, with
blocking so many shots,
just blocking shots, making it really difficult, especially the first two periods. I mean, even going back to Chicago, I mean, the first and second period of the last three games have been nothing short of near perfect in terms of how they've defended. And then obviously third period, it maybe looks a little worse, but I think you're at that point where they're trying to close out the game. And I'm never a proponent of late in the game, like when you're up 2 goals to like just defend. But when you're without Kirill Kaprizov, that's kind of what you have to do. And they've done it really well. And, last time we talked, they're a little bit of a slump. And now all of a sudden they've rattled off 3 straight. Just took, like we said, just being back on the road again to get it working again.
Yeah. And I mean, not without, some, I don't want to say injuries because I don't think anybody's injuries, but some guys banged up. I mean, Hartman was showing some discomfort on the bench. Merrill blocking shots, showed some discomfort as well. Like, it was a tough game. Like, Montreal really, really wants to make the playoffs, and it shows, right? And they have to win. They have to win a ton here in the second half of the season to really get that wild card spot. And they're a hard team to play against. They're like, a lot of their young guys who are in their mid-20s right now are damn good players. I think a lot of people look over like the Suzukis of the world, Caulfield, for example, and Brendan Gallagher still mucking it up. Like, yeah, probably not going to be like a 50-point scorer anymore, but 30 points and just like a Brendan Gallagher who can still like play at this pace is a tough team to play against. Obviously, Montreal's goaltending leaves a lot to be desired, but overall, like I thought like they had their moments. They did everything but score. Them getting a power play late was like a little bit like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here, but no, Fleury looked great when he was tested. The boys played really good in front of him. Ogren with his first of the season. Murat looking like doing everything but scoring as well. Man, that play where he just like undressed one of the Montreal Canadiens players right up against the boards, moving up that right side was amazing, and him just laying out Hudson as well was great. So I thought and Murat scoring, getting the monkey off his back in the Toronto game as well. So yeah, like the bottom six is scoring now, which is
the fourth line. I think we're seeing the best hockey that they've played in a long time, maybe all year. I mean, obviously it sticks out a little bit more with your point, the Huzinov goal the other night, and obviously Shore with a big one tonight. I think his was the one that put him up 3-zip, I believe.
Yeah, but that sequence was
kind of
like
a separator.
Fleury bailed them out like three times in a row. It's like I even tweeted, I was like, of course Devin Shore like gets the goal at the end of that sequence. Like,
yeah, but it's nice to kind of be on the other end of that for once, because like it feels like it happens so much to the Wild where they'll just be putting on the pressure, like hit a post, goalie makes a save, the other team doesn't have a shot in like the last like 10 minutes, and they go down, it's like one shot and it's in the back of the net. So it was nice to like, okay, that does go our way once in a blue moon, and to see that. And, I think to your point about Huzinov, like I think you saw it, especially tonight, maybe it helps you're playing a team like Montreal that's maybe not as deep, but you could just, we're starting to see, when we talked earlier in the season about him, like we're waiting to see like, how does he translate that speed into offense? How does he start attacking the ice? How does he start going to the net? And last night we see, he's playing responsible, high in the zone, sees the Wild can control the puck, comes into the slot, gets a pass, scores. To your point tonight on the one chance, he makes a great play down the wall, power moves, uses his speed to create separation, sets up a good scoring chance. I think you're starting to see some of that stuff that we've been begging to see from him. And hopefully it's not a lightning in a bottle. It's a quick flash, 2-3 games. I'm hoping this is maybe the start for him of like, hey, I can play in this league. I can bring offense. And sometimes for a young kid, all it takes is that little spark, that little jolt. And hopefully that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. Confidence does a lot. And like, this is the Murat that we watched play in the KHL. Like,
for sure.
Little, like he has dangles. He's got hands, but it's like in combination with that speed, like he knows what he's doing out there. And I think we could
absolutely.
I think like that entire fourth line got a little frustrated, just like when they got the puck in the offensive zone because just nothing was going for them. And now that like, okay, like you said, confidence is huge. We might not see this every single night, but if we see it every other or every third night from this line, then it's like, okay, they're at least a threat. Because like, yeah, he was like skating circles around like some of Montreal's top players tonight, and it was just it just looked like confidence.
Yeah, and I think you saw a little bit of confidence from John Hines too. That line actually played the third most minutes tonight. They were a minute and a half more than the Ogren, Goudreau, Trennan line. At 9 minutes 37 seconds, controlled 51.1% of the expected goals. So like that's what you want from your fourth line. Obviously, goals are great, but when they start just controlling play, and when you can throw your fourth line out there to maybe just like take up a minute in the offensive zone, let your other guys get a break, that's huge. And I think as the Wild get healthy, that's hopefully going to stabilize a little bit. Like, all due respect to those guys that have been filling in, but they're AHL and NHL tweeners for a reason. And now I think as you start to get healthy up front, you're seeing a fourth line and starting to see kind of this four lines that the Wild can roll. And I think that was the huge part of these last two games, because all four lines were going. They were able to play 60-minute games both nights, and not like, it didn't look to me, at least tonight, that anyone really looked tired, despite it being the second of a back-to-back.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the boys owe the posts like a case of beer.
Yeah,
as well, because not only last night where it was like 3 or 4, tonight there was at least 2. One for Toronto as well, but still. So it's just, yeah, the post has played a big part of this road trip thus far, and yeah, we'll see how they do in Ottawa.
Yeah, but I mean, if you had who were the goal scorers tonight? We had Devin Shore, Liam Ogren, Freddie Goudreau, and Marco Rossi. If you had those 4 goal scorers before the game, I would love to know.
Yeah, I mean, Rossi 18th on the year, so I mean, he's crushing it, man. Like,
yeah.
He's only 23. Give it one, like, okay, this is that. All he's done is take steps forward. Like, give it another year, and it's like he could be that top center. And like, haven't the Wild wanted a top center or needed a top center like their entire re-existence here in the National Hockey League?
I mean, what he's shown you this year is his floor is a 2C. So, I don't
That's
know
what I'm saying. If the floor is a 2C, then like let's just give him a little bit more time. Not every top center pops at 23. Some pop at 25. Some 26, and then you get.
Look at, was it Tage Thompson? When was his breakout? Like 26, I think, when he finally had that huge campaign.
Yeah.
And I think this year is the Rossi breakout. I think you look at what he did last year. He's pretty much already hit all of his totals from last year, and we're only 50 games into the season. But yeah, I think you look at, we'll talk a little bit here in a minute about with Kaprizov out, like some of the guys need to step up. I think he's one of the guys they're going to look at, and I think he's been up to the task so far with just stepping up and just being a steady presence, because he's been one of those guys. It seems like no matter who's on his line, he's found a way to produce and adapt and adjust. And maybe not something that can be said for the rest of the roster with certain players, but he's been a very consistent player this year, in a year that's had a fair amount of inconsistencies.
And he always just is like stone cold face. And like, I can tell it gets like under some of the opposition's skin at times. And like, sometimes he's going to draw on penalties and he just gets up and you have like a tiny little smirk, but just kind of look at the ref and be like,
well, there's that gif of, I think it was against the Panthers, when Tkachuk is like grabbing his jersey and he just he like looks back, realizes it's Tkachuk, and just like rolls his eyes. He's like this guy's got a little bit of swagger. He's like
that. It just gives me vibes of when, and it's funny because like, so John Tortorella coached only one season with the Vancouver Canucks. The Sedins were on the penalty kill that year, and their points went from 80 to 40. Funny enough, but anyways, Tom Sestito was on that Vancouver Canucks team and didn't play much. But during the brawl, or right after the brawl, the Canucks had against the Calgary Flames that one year, I think it was like 2014, where it was just like a line brawl right at the start of the game. John Tortorella explained it to the media by being like, and literally Cecito right next to him being like, they threw their idiots out there, so we threw ours. And Cecito like looked at him and was just like, rolls his eyes like, what the fuck, dude? It was just like, Rossi's like, all right, this idiot again coming after me. Yeah. So, speaking of Tkachuk, though, Brady, I mean, having another great season with the Ottawa Senators, always tough to play against. So, like, I wonder who takes like that task, like in that matchup. Is it going to be like Foligno? Is it going to be Hartman?
I think Hartman has more of that kind of psycho energy, I think, that Tkachuk brings. But if you want someone that
Tkachuk's way bigger than him. That's the thing.
Like, I mean, I think what we saw, I mean, we knew what was going to happen in that Nashville game, where there was going to be a response for the hit and stuff. But I think, and it was a downfall, I think, under Evason too, is I think sometimes in those moments, the Wild get so wrapped up in, we have to match this intensity and we have to play physical. We have to throw an extra hit and we have to get in the extra stuff. And I just don't think that's their game under Hines. And I think when we've seen games that start to get out of hand like that, they're games the Wild lose. So I think, to me, I'd like to see no one really get in with, like, just laugh it off, skate away. Like, do the Marco Rossi, like, give him the weird look, shake it off and skate away. Like, that gets under their skin way more than firing back. Like, make them come to you, make them take the penalties. You go on the power play, stay out of the crap, because you're shorthanded enough up front. You can't afford to be putting guys in the box for fighting or coincidental minors or whatever it might be.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because like Ottawa and Montreal, like they're not bad teams this year. Like they're actually like competitive teams. But like Toronto, a team that like very well could have kicked the Wild's ass. Like, yeah, it was just great to see that win and momentum carrying on.
For sure.
Of Yo Big Sens win in overtime. Yo, what's up, Isaiah? A Sens fan. Good to see you. Good to see you. Anything else from the last two games you want to get into, or should we jump into the hockey headlines? Because we actually have a big show here, Head.
Yeah, I think we can jump right in and make sure that we try to keep this to an hour.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's fire through these ones then. We haven't had a chance to talk about Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, I mean, that just kind of like came out of nowhere. Like
he thought so too.
Yeah, like it wasn't a rumor that, like, the rumors were like the Avs and Rantanen are like still working on cap stuff. Right? Like, we're still trying to figure out what the cap is. And I think we talked about it briefly on this show, is like, there's this rumor that the salary cap within the next 2 years is going to go way up. Like right now, I think it's a shade under 90 million. They think it's going to go up north of 100, maybe even like high as like 103, 105.
And I've heard that too. I have to get. I'm just gonna get that video of Rossi rolling his eyes now because like I just had that same reaction. It's like, but I've been hearing that for the last decade now, and it's like I know there was a global pandemic.
Yeah.
I know the market was like, surviving at one point and then like rebuilding, but like for the last 10 years, Brett, all I've heard is the cap's going up, guys, and it has, in fairness. But like literally the year before it was supposed to make that jump. Boom, global pandemic, and it's like, for fuck's sake, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So I really hope that's the case, but now I'm almost apathetic. It's like until it happens.
Yeah. But I think that's why there's teams that are like kind of in this pickle of and these stars, because I think a lot of times we hear numbers, especially this year, get thrown out like, oh, they offered him this much and you didn't want to take it. Like, yes, the money is important, but a lot of, I think from the agent's perspective, they're looking at this as a percentage of the cap, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
an $11 million contract on a $90 million salary cap is a lot different than an $11 million contract on a $100 million salary cap.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's this uncertainty with GMs, with agents of, is this cap going to go up? If it is, what's it going to be? And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of these not extensions. So I thought that was the holdup to come back to our original point of the Rantanen trade. I think that's like, I was like, they're just waiting. And all of a sudden it was like, Mikko Rantanen's getting traded. And I'm like, the hell? And then, yeah, I mean, Carolina still comes out as the winner in this trade to me. I mean, I think Martin Necas is a great player. And Jack Drury gives them some much needed depth, I think, in their bottom six that they've kind of been lacking. I don't look at the Avalanche a whole lot different now. I mean, obviously I think
they were deep up front anyways. And now you're never going to replace a Mikko Rantanen because he's arguably like a top 10 player in the league. I mean, multiple 100-point seasons, like 92 when they won the cup, right? Like he's proven it, right? But like he's proven it with the team that's been extremely deep and has had amazing players up front as well. It's going to be interesting to see, like, give him a season with Carolina, who also has really good players too, but not like Avs level superstars, and see like where his points are at.
Yeah. So, shocking deal. I still think the loser in that trade was Chicago. Lost a roster player, grabbed half of the salary, and then only got a third-round pick. Like, I think if they got a third for Hall or for the salary cap retention, that's fine. But like just getting the one
second at least.
Yeah, like it should. I feel like it should have been a second, or at least like a third and a fifth. It just feels like they're like, oh yeah, we'll broker this huge trade for you and really have nothing to come out of it.
We just want people to write about us because like nothing's going on right now.
Although I think
here's some stuff to write about, and you can somehow make up a rumor of Kaprizov coming to Chicago as a result.
Yeah,
they did this so they could sign Kaprizov.
Yeah, so I mean, as a Wild fan, it makes me happy. Like not having to play Rantanen 6-7 times a year is great. Sucks not to watch him because he's a fun player to watch, but I think we'll see him soon in Carolina actually. But then only seen him twice a year now compared to 6-7. It'll be good. The other thing that I'm curious about too is I do wonder whatever Rantanen's next deal ends up being, because I believe he is a free agent this summer. If that kind of almost sets a floor for Kaprizov, right? The agents are always looking at comps and stuff. So I wonder if, whatever Rantanen's number is, if Kaprizov's agent steps in and goes, okay, that's the bare minimum that we're taking at this point. So I think that's an interesting thing to watch, is kind of what that contract could potentially mean for Kaprizov.
Yeah. And I mean, similar numbers, obviously Kaprizov, has been hurt. So we just haven't seen him play as many games overall, but like you'd think if he played even 10 more games, he would get 100 points. So that's 200-point seasons. Played a few seasons less than him. I mean, goals, they're both top 10 players. And you might even argue that like if you put Kaprizov in Rantanen's place on the Avs, it's only 100-point seasons, right? So
yeah, if he's playing with McKinnon and getting ice time with Makar, versus playing with Victor Rask, those numbers are probably a little bit higher for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, with your projection of the cap, with him being like the guy in Minnesota, not one of many, a pool of many, like in Carolina, like in Colorado, like if he stays, and when he stays, because I don't think he's going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, he's gonna get paid like a stupid amount. Like it's gonna be north of $14 million.
Yeah, I think 14 is the floor. I think the lowest, but because I think from his standpoint and the Wild standpoint, there's almost this like we can't afford to lose you type of bump. Like we've seen like how important he was to this team this year.
Yeah, well, not
Prior
only
to
to the team, but just like the franchise, the
yeah,
market, the fan base, everything. Like he is the Minnesota Wild right
yeah,
now. Like no disrespect to anybody there,
absolutely.
or who's Nadinov, but like he is the man.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, but I think I think Russo talked about it on one of his most recent podcasts. But I think this injury is almost like it's obviously never a good thing to get injured, but maybe like a nice potential to wake up call that like, hey, this can change in an instant. Where if Kaprizov is thinking about, I don't want to extend this summer, like, hey, you're an ACL away from your next contract, losing out on tens of millions of dollars, and I think that he mentioned like that's a little bit of a wake up call. I couldn't agree more, especially now. I think
Well, it's surgery too. That's
when it's
the big
surgery,
thing.
and this was prior to the surgery. This is just when he was day to day. I think this is before he came back. But yeah, I think now that you're looking at surgery, like I'm a tweak here, a tweak there away from potentially missing out on a lot of money. Maybe I should just take this. I like it here. The team likes me here. Like this is a team built to win. Like I think a lot of all this uncertainty, I feel like that there was at the beginning of the year of like, but I think now at the Wild have shown like, look how good they can be while still being 15 million under the cap. True. Imagine we can be when we can start, when we add a Brock Besser now or whatever it is.
When Urov comes over, because Urov's going to come over and he's going to be a stud, dude. Like,
and these Ogrens and these Fabers and these Bouillams start to take those next steps on the rookie deals. Like I think there's a path and everything's kind of coming together where I have a lot less anxiety now about the extension than I did, 50 games ago.
Yeah, this is honestly starting to look way better than the Shanna plan did like almost a decade ago now. So.
For sure. All right. Next headline here, we'll move on because we got plenty of. We'll talk a little bit about Kaprizov here in a little bit in the analytics portion. A pretty big headline, at least for me. Alex Pietrangelo of the Vegas Golden Knights sitting out of the Four Nations with an injury, but the injury is not bad enough for him to sit out of Vegas's games.
He's going full OV All-Star game.
Like to me, it's horseshit. I think since this is replacing the All-Star game, I think they should come down on him, just as they would,
Yeah, it's an NHL
for the All-Star game. Like just embarrassing. Like I've never liked Pietrangelo in the first place. I call him Pietrangelo. Like I don't like the guy anyway. But like, what's the like? You're just like basically kind of flipping off your country a little bit too, right? Like, hey, you got picked to this team, and like, nah. Like, yeah, I'm gonna rest up this minor injury that I have. I don't know. Well, it doesn't feel in the spirit of the game.
It's coming off the suggestions coming out of a certain NHL media market that a certain Connor McDavid should have done the same thing in protest to his 3-game suspension, and people are saying no, like that would be such a slap in the face to Canada. Blah blah blah.
Are you talking about the Wyshynski tweet?
Yeah. And then,
I think that was tongue in cheek because he's from the U.S. So he's like, McDavid sits out, the U.S. has a better chance at winning.
Yeah, well, you should have seen the comments and then the Edmonton media run with that story as well.
I'm sure.
It was wild. So, but then Pietrangelo actually does it with, not even in protest, just
Yeah. So
good riddance, Alex. Good riddance. We don't need you anyways.
Yeah. I think the league should come down with him. I mean, I'm not saying a 10-game ban, but 1 or 2 games, like, I think is fair. Like, all right. You want to sit out?
If Torts got 20,000+ or whatever it was for, lipping off a ref, then like give at least $5,000 to Pietrangelo.
Yeah. Some sort of discipline, because I mean we're even seeing guys that are like, Matthews obviously just came back, named the captain today. I believe Crosby was named captain of Canada. Not really big surprises there at all, but like you're seeing these guys that like want to play. Like I loathe Drew Doughty, right? But, he's been a name, I think, rumored to maybe take that spot. And he's just coming back from injury, too. Like, I guess, like, at least get guys there that want to play. Like, if you don't want to play, like...
Drew loves playing with the boys.
Yeah.
For, international play as well.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm still curious as to what kind of on-ice product we're going to get, if it will feel a little bit all-star gamey, or if there's going to be this level of intensity, maybe not quite to the Olympics level, but, this level of intensity that's maybe a step above, maybe like NHL preseason-ish. At least, like where there's a little bit of physical play, but
I think it's gonna be like probably the Finns, who just like throw a hit that's like a little bit bigger than what you'd expect, and then we're gonna see a game.
All hell breaks loose for sure.
Yeah. You know, and I truly think it's Finland that's gonna do it.
That would make sense. They got some. I'm not gonna say no names, but some lesser known names that maybe be willing to like. I'll mix it up a little bit. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably be like, "Yo, pro scouts are watching regardless, boys. So if I have a good tournament here, then like, I'll get paid next year." So
very true, very true.
Still on best, right?
Yeah. Speaking of getting paid, couple big name players that got paid a few years ago hit waivers this week.
Yeah.
Brandon Saad, Philip Grubauer, Saad for the St. Louis Blues, Grubauer for the Seattle Kraken. I don't want to talk so much about the players, but just on this premise of these are kind of maybe not so much on the Saad side, but like on the Grubauer side. And we saw it also with Jack Campbell in Edmonton of like paying these goalies boatloads of money after like a breakout season or like one good year. And I think the same can go for me, like over 30 forwards. Like if a forward to me has a career year at age like 29 or 30, I am so out on a 6-7 year deal.
You know, if it hasn't been like for the last 3 and you're like, okay, like,
well, like Kadri in Calgary is another one. Like the guy's a good player, but he's probably not playing at what they're paying him that level.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, like, I mean, even good players can hit waivers, and you know, it's a money league now, and it sounds like Saad, there's mutual agreement to terminate his contract, so he'll become a free agent.
Yeah,
Grubauer,
he only had 1 year left, and like in fairness to me, he was only getting paid like 4.5, and he was kind of always like a 35 to 50 point guy.
Yeah, he's a second line winger in his prime.
Yeah, he got paid for those cup, the Chicago run.
and deservedly so. Yeah. Like he was a huge piece to those teams. But
yeah, no, goalies for sure, and it's the same thing. It's like there's very few goalies that I'm like, okay, I'm okay with you getting paid, right? Like Vasilevsky's one of them where it's like I'm perfectly fine and have no issues. But Bobrovsky, despite him winning a cup, I'm still like I no comment on that.
He is so up and down. When I was doing that newsletter a couple weeks ago and like looking at seasons, like Bobrovsky, it would be like
plays to it
amazing
when he's playing
shit,
well.
amazing shit. Like it's
So
there was no level of consistency to his game.
That one's a weird one.
Yeah,
but like even Jacob Markstrom signed that 7-7 with Calgary, whatever it was, 6-6, and it's just like like in Vancouver you played like that, but in Calgary not so much, right? So yeah, goalies, it's gone up a little bit, the market value for them, right? Because like you look at like Roberto Luongo, who was pretty streaky in Vancouver, but like streaky for a top goalie, and he was making 5.5, and everyone was freaking out. Mind you, that was 15 years ago, but still, people were freaking out, just like probably they were with, or still are sometimes with Bobrovsky. But no, I think with goaltending, it's like even if it's been consistent for a few years, it's like you can't let that one player be the anchor. Like as with the cap going up, we'll see probably more goalies getting paid. The ones who are like $5 to $6 million, we'll see like 7, 8, maybe 9. Yeah. It's gonna be weird at first, but like with the top guys being now the outlier 10s being 13. We'll get used to it pretty quick. But again, that if you got $100 million for a cap, you can't let
Gus at 3.6 or 3.7, whatever it is looking pretty darn good right now.
Where's everybody who wanted to trade him in the summer?
Yeah, and I bet you if the Wild said, "Hey, you could have this guy right now," they'd have a long line of potential suitors for that deal now. So
100%.
Yeah. Speaking of long lines, what there's not a long line for anymore is the team names for Utah and their future. A couple articles out today. They are now down to 3 names. The Mammoth, keeping Utah HC Hockey Club, and then the new one as of, I think, earlier today, Outlaws, which replaced Wasatch. I don't know how to say it. It's part of a mountain range nearby, I guess. And the fans were like, no, we don't want that. Do Outlaws instead. So those are the final 3.
Outlaws.
One of the
NHL.
Yeah, I think on NHL, like whenever I do creative teams, I would do I'd create whole leagues. Like I'd do 32 custom teams because I don't really like the online stuff, and I like that stuff way better.
That was my shit. Dude.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I would do be a GM with like a fully custom league. And Outlaws was always one of the teams I would create because there was like you're limited to what good logos were, and they had some good logos for it. But the maybe somewhat big story out of this is that Yeti will not be the name. I think if you look at the popular opinion going into the naming process, I think Yeti was probably number one on, like, it was number one on my list for sure. Like, I love the name
inside
Yeti.
and outside the market, I think.
Yeah. But they ran into some stuff with patents and copyright and all that stuff from the brand Yeti that does the coolers and stuff. And as someone who I work in marketing, so I kind of understand a little bit of what the argument is. So as a company, especially when you're selling product to consumers, you invest a lot of money in SEO and getting your brand and anything associated with your brand really high in search results. Like, whatever amount of money you're thinking that big brands spend on it, it's way more than that. It's a ton. So I think where the breakdown happened here is Yeti Cooler said, we've put so much money and advertisement and work into building up, if someone goes to Google and types in Utah Yeti to find a cup, that they don't want to lose that business that they're getting. And they probably have enough data to say, no, I mean, we're converting on so many of these sales from searches and stuff. We can't afford to lose that no matter what money you want to, what you want to do. So I think that's kind of the root of why it broke down, which from a business standpoint, I get it. From a fan standpoint, kind of stinks. But between those three that are left now, Mammoth, keeping Utah HC, and Outlaws, what's your go-to?
I like, as far as like an actual name and like an actual logo, I prefer Mammoth over Outlaw. But you know what? Like, I'll be that shithead. Just keep it HC.
I mean, obviously, I threw a little bit of bias here with my hat on today. I put on a Mammoth hat.
So. Mammoth is the best out of the three. But if they kept it HC, I would totally just have I'd shake my head and smile. Or I would Rossi eye roll, but still smile. Yeah,
I think the bummer for me, like, I don't hate Utah Hockey Club. Like, I don't hate the ring to it, but I think you look at their color scheme, and like, there's opportunity to do some really cool things with that logo, with that color scheme. And I think HC kind of ruins some of the cool things you could have done. So I think at least with Outlaw or Mammoth, you can at least get a little crazy with it.
What's like some other, like, Chewbacca looking beast that's like not a Yeti, but like I bet there's like a synonym, or there's some other beast out there that they could, I don't know. Maybe there isn't, since I can't think of one off the top of my head. But like, I just thought like that Winnipeg Ice logo was in the WHL before they moved to Wenatchee was just perfect, and it could have translated over to the National Hockey League if they just like somewhat changed it a little bit, or just straight up bought it from Winnipeg or Wenatchee, whoever owns it now. And it's already their color scheme. And I was like, man, it's too perfect. But like, yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Carson Lambos looked damn good in it.
Yeah. That he did. Oh, man. All right. Well, I guess Kuzmenko was just traded. And Brett's choking here. But I haven't really been on Twitter since the show started. Hockey from Home saying in the live chat that Kuzmenko was traded to Philly. So that might be just some breaking news that we're hearing about right now. Hockey from Home sometimes has questionable sources. So,
well, right when we jumped on, I think I did see that from Elliot Friedman.
Okay.
Latest update: Jacob Peltier also part of the deal.
Oh, damn.
Which that's a little more surprising for me.
Yeah, Kuzmenko. I mean, goal scorer, and like he's a very good goal scorer when he's new on a team. Like, upon joining the Canucks, absolutely dominated. 39 goals in his first year. Gets shipped to the Calgary Flames and actually looks really good upon being traded. Went from having 8 goals in 43 games to 14 in 29. But that's all he can do is score goals, I think.
I almost wonder if Peltier's like on the same tier of like net. This was like a pretty significant move. Like, Peltier and Kuzmenko are like, are they elite players? No, but like they're good players.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is. I mean,
Peltier hasn't played much in the NHL yet, but like projected to be.
Yeah, I would have to think this has to be for a bigger name player going to Calgary. Like, this feels to me like Calgary trying. I mean, they're sitting, I think right now, 1 point out of a playoff spot behind Vancouver.
Crazy, given how
with a game in hand. So I don't know I think they're playing right now though. But I don't know if if this is a move for them to like improve now to try to make a playoff push, or if because I thought they were kind of like,
who knows with the Flames, dude.
Yeah, because I kind of thought they're rebuilding, but they're kind of in that weird like 2019 Wild where like there's enough high end talent in players like, Huberdeau, and we talked a little bit about Kadri. Obviously, they're getting awesome goaltending from Dustin Wolf. Like they have some pieces there, so it's like, can you really tank or be bad when you have those players, or
when you're so close too? Because Vancouver has not been playing well this year, and it's like, if they were dominated and just taking points from everybody, then that's one thing. But it's like, actually, we could sneak in here. So
yeah, so
maybe see a little battle of Alberta again in the first round. Oh,
yeah. Well, I'll keep an eye on Elliot's tweets here throughout the show. Maybe we'll get the full trade here.
I do like Kuzmenko, fan favorite for sure. But yeah, he always seems to fade after a season with with his new team. But anyways, let's jump to our next segment here, the analytics agenda.
All right, analytics agenda today. Gonna try to do something we've sort of done before, but with the news breaking this week that Kirill Kaprizov would miss 4 to 6 weeks with surgery, I think presuming where it's like either a hamstring or a groin that he tweaked sometime around Christmas, came back, just didn't feel quite right. And so I want to take a look at just like what do the Wild look like with Kaprizov out of the lineup or just when he's not on the ice, just to see like what are we in store for here over the next, it looks anywhere from like 6 to 12 games, and that was including the previous 2. So there it is. Like it's pretty black and white here. Like they are very clearly and obviously a better player with him in the lineup. We have the stats with him, without him on the screen here for those listening. The without Kaprizov numbers are still include the games that he played, but just means like he was on the bench. So at 5-on-5, their goals for per 60 minutes drops from 3.41 with Kaprizov to 1.96 without him. That's a 43% drop on just 5-on-5 scoring. That doesn't include the impact it has to the power play either. Goals against, not as big of a discrepancy here, 2.03 to 2.16. So that's, I think, a little bit testament to the Wild structure, but defense can stay the same, but they really struggled to then turn that the other way. Pretty similar across the board with the shot attempts, expected goals, 21% fewer per hour. Basically with him out there, goes from 55.7 to 47.6. So I think what we know from these numbers and what we've seen in the last couple games now is the recipe for this team to win is to have some guys deeper in the lineup step up. Top of lineup, you're looking probably at Boldy, Rossi, Eriksson Ek. Maybe right now, Liam Ogren, now 3 points in 7 games since his call-up. Big goal tonight. Maybe he's a guy that can be leaned on to step up potentially. And then it's just going to be like, like we saw and we talked about at the top of the show, it's going to take guys like Devin Shore, Murat Husnudinov, Freddie Gaudreau, these third, fourth line guys to step up. And then for the team as a whole to buy into the defensive system that's won them so many games this year and have to win games by defending until you can get him back. And the bright side of this, if he does hit that 4-week timeline, that earlier side, he'd be back the first game after the 4 Nations and would only miss, I think it'd be 6 or 7 games. So if you can grind by for a little bit, otherwise the 6-week timeline, I think doubles that out to maybe like 12-ish games. But it'll be interesting to see what they can do. But I mean, if they keep playing like they have the last 3 games, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and like the commenter said here, thanks for jumping in, buddy. If he does need some time to get back into a rhythm, again, hip surgery is no joke, then it's like there's still a little bit of runway before playoffs. And like I said, the Wild, they're not going to fall out of it because they're still above 500 without him, and they can still dig deep and win games. And like I said, they keep buying cases of beer for the posts, and we're going to get the hockey gods are going to give us a little luck. So.
Yeah, and I think the reporting on the injury was that the surgery, you're expected to come back and basically almost be 100%. In terms of like that muscle or whatever is repaired, I think you're more looking at is the conditioning up to snuff at that point.
For sure. Sweet. Well, let's get to a fun last segment here. Puck your opinions, where you folks on Twitter actually are steering the ship on this one.
I just want to say, puck your opinion.
So instead of pucking our own opinions tonight, we are literally pucking your opinion this evening. So we have a lot. There's probably like 15 or so here.
We'll fire through them.
We'll try to rapid fire them the best we can. If we don't get to yours this week, we will for sure bookmark it, save it in our doc, and we will do it next week for sure. So I just kind of went right down the line here. So we'll start off. These are all from Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. From IceWild29, he says, GM Bill Guerin has painted his team into a salary cap corner with no ability to improve the team at the trade deadline. Eliminate the and then he also had a follow-up one that was to eliminate the ability to ice the puck on the penalty kill. So we'll start with the first one. I don't think Guerin painted himself into this corner. This is the hand he was dealt. I think there was a lot of talk about the Middleton contract, the Foligno contract, the Goudreau contract. Some of these that were like more iffy, but I think you look at the defensive play that Foligno's had this year, the way Gus has bounced back. I think we're starting to see a little bit better version of Ryan Hartman. Obviously, Middleton in the midst of a breakout season. Like in hindsight, those are all relatively good contracts. The buyouts were important because it gave them cap certainty. Like if they hadn't done that, they would be in like cap recaps right now because Zach Parise retired. And they would have to like hit huge penalties for that. So I don't think this is Guerin's fault. And obviously they had plans, if they could avoid LTR this year to hopefully add a player at the deadline. But, the injuries they've suffered have taken that away. And I don't think that's a Guerin problem. That's maybe more of a league issue or things like that. Or, just the penalties that the league assessed essentially to the Wild, changing the salary cap rules after those deals were signed. But I'm not really blaming this on Guerin. It's not a very easy hand to be dealt. And he's making a lot of what he's working with.
Absolutely.
Anything to add?
No, you said it. You said it.
All right.
If we're gonna fire through a lot of these, if I agree with you, I'll just be like, yep.
Perfect. I'll let you take the second one here of eliminating the ability to ice the puck on the penalty.
It's annoying sometimes as a viewer, but look, if you were a player, you would be like, no, just no, because I think it's actually just essential to that particular special teams play.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it turns the penalty kill. I think it becomes too penalizing. Like you put a puck over the glass and all of a sudden it's like you might as well just shot the puck into your own net. Like this relentless pressure, like you have to have some way to do it. And like I think you see, like look at the Minnesota Wild, they still struggle to get clears on the penalty kill. So it's not like it's something that they can rely on. But
easy, and you have to stay on the ice. So
I think you could maybe do a rule similar to 5-on-5 where I guess that wouldn't work because you wouldn't whistle it, but never mind. So you wouldn't allow line changes, but you'd have to call the icing.
The game can't be perfect. That's one of those things that as a viewer, you're like, this is slowing it down. But it's like, if you're out there, like you want that option. Yeah, I would want that option.
Yeah. For it to work, I think you'd have to like cut penalty time down to like a minute or minute 30. Like you'd have to do something in the way to offset it. I think 2 minutes being unable to ice it would lead to too many goals and penalties become too penalizing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Good questions. Thank you.
Next one from JBrown_TC. Not a true hot take, but if an offsides review can't be determined within 1 minute, it's not offsides because it wouldn't have affected the play one way or another. Agree.
Yeah, I'm
straight up
with that. Yeah, we see it especially with the IHF tournaments where like this could literally go on for like 10 minutes, and it's like if you can't zoom in enough to determine this, or you don't have enough cameras out there, enough. Like let's get to it. Yeah. Let's get to it.
And the ones that drive me insane are the ones that it happened like 30 seconds before the goal was scored. It's like so many more things happened after you missed that call.
I have one for you. And again, the Americans, you guys are probably gonna be like, yeah, well, it actually worked in our favor here. But like I believe it was 2017 Women's World Championships, and Finland beat the United States in overtime. And we're talking like confetti already on the ice. Every player's thrown their helmet off and stick. Like they're celebrating on the bench. 15 minutes later, 2 commercials, all the interviews, the IHF reverses the call. Oh, sorry, offside. Or what? Yeah, I'm like 90% sure it was offside and wasn't like goalie interference or some shit like that. And then they had to clean all the confetti. Like an hour later, US scores, game over. Like it's just like, are you kidding me? That was the most. I was on air doing like radio, and we had it on throughout the whole show, and we were like, "What is going on? This is the craziest thing we've ever seen."
Yeah, reminds me of the Mavericks in the McNaughton Cup a couple years back. It wasn't due to offsides, but like it was an overtime winner, and the puck went in by the net getting lifted up,
Oh,
and it got missed in real time. And like the Mavs had celebrated, like the fans had left, like there were players that were like leaving the rink, like heading to the bar, like all of this stuff, and like same thing. Like 30 minutes later, the the CCHA dials in. Don Lucia's like, that goal didn't go in properly. Like it's not a goal. It went under the net. And like I think one of the refs had like left the building or something. Like
oh my god!
call like everybody back, and then Mavericks ended up winning it anyway. But
Yeah, well there you go.
yeah, like to the original point, like yeah, like I think if it's not obvious, especially after looking at it for over a minute, just stick with your call.
What about this one though? Shea Weber in the Olympics shot a puck so hard it went through. No one noticed it go in, and it went through the netting. And Luongo, like I think it was like a minute or two later, was like pointing at the ref to like review it because he literally saw it, and then it counted as a goal
From the other end. Yeah. The Wild had one too. I don't think it was a game winner. This is a long, long time ago. I don't know why I remember this. But same thing happened in the Mavericks game where there was a goal that went in by the net getting lifted up on accident. And I still remember because the Wild goalie was like, because there's a weird shot. It was like kind of from like the outside hash mark. And he was like on his post, his blocker on the ice. And the puck, and he sat there like lifting up his blocker. And like, he's like, where the heck did that go in? He's like, I know my pad's on the post. And he was like, just dumbfounded, and it never got reviewed. The goal stood. And then like after the league was like, oh yeah, we definitely fucked that one up.
Yeah, crazy game.
Because I think at the time, like there was nothing that like the Wild could challenge for. They could just had to plead their case, like, hey, you need to look at that. And the league, for whatever reason, never radioed down. But
can't catch them all. Our boy Dev here with a good one.
Yeah, says Murat Huzinov is good and will be a contributing piece on this team's first cup run. And then Drip MN had a similar question, so I included them both for this one. I said, would like to hear a take on Huzinov's value. Well, he definitely you picked a good time to jump on the Huzinov bus because we talked about top of the show. He's looked a lot better as of late. I was campaigning, and I still would maybe stand by it a little stint in the AHL just to like get him in some offensive situations, like get that offensive confidence there. But
the last two games we've seen it.
Yeah. So maybe that's the spark he needed. It was Lauko and Shore on his line to get it working. But as terms of his value, like I think long term he's a quality bottom six guy.
Yeah.
Like is he gonna be a 50-point guy? No, but could he be a 30-point, speedy fringe third line center? Sure.
Yeah. His ceiling is still like there's still a higher ceiling than usual right now because this is his first year and he's still like young. So like if he kind of plateaus next year or like the offense doesn't go up, then I'd say like, hey, the value will definitely go down. But like, yeah, definitely a guy who could play in any team's bottom six right now. And this is a true rookie season. So like there's value in that for sure.
I think there's a lot of things to like about his game, right? It's not like these other tweeners where like, this guy doesn't really do anything flashy. He's just kind of average across the board. Like Huzinov has some
flashiness and speed to his game where you're just like, oh, I just need you to put it all together, and you can have games like last night and tonight.
And I think there's some defensive IQ. Like we've seen offense at times. Like I think there's a lot there.
The defense is there already. That's what I mean. Yeah. Like anybody could put him in and be like, yo, do this shutdown system and he'd be fine. But it's like there's other skills there, and it's gonna be interesting to see if he can employ them regularly in the NHL.
For sure. Next one here from @Jordan BTW says they should buy out Goudreau's contract.
No more buyouts, bro. No more buyouts.
My response to that one would be maybe ? Like it depends what freeing up
these younger guys are ready and who they can acquire realistically.
It's the opportunity cost of okay, what does that extra whatever? Because there's still going to be a small penalty. So for his case, I think his contract is it $2 million a year or something? So say you get 1.75 back or whatever it is. Like, what does that 1.75 get you? Does it guarantee that you can now have Kaprizov and also extend Rossi? Sure, 100%. But does it get me like another third line fringe player for $2 million, then I don't really care.
Yeah.
So if it frees up money to spend and upgrade somewhere else, all in. But just doing it for the sake of doing it, I don't see the point. I think
he's one of the guys in the bottom six that's like dependable and consistent, and there's so many other, like, you can trim the fat elsewhere, I think.
Yeah, and I think seeing what he's done this year, I think you can now look at last year as the outlier, right, and not the new norm. Where I think coming into this year, there was maybe like, is this the new norm with Freddie? But I think, we've seen good. That, like, no, it was like he clearly wasn't 100% last year, and it affected his game. And now that he's healthy again, he's in a much better spot. This one from Running Noah 34. Trading Middleton now seems scary, but could open space for the future and net a decent haul.
Like, in theory, I agree, but like him and Faber have that chemistry. Like, just like you have center and wingers who have good chemistry, you want to keep that together. We saw how even Faber's game dipped a little bit when Middleton wasn't in the lineup. So it's like, I think he's worth every penny right now. And it's like, when he's not with Faber, sure, his just play dips a little bit as well, but that just goes like what I just said, comes around full circle. Chemistry is important. Those two guys are working together right now, and just like my example with Goudreau, like, I think you can trim the fat elsewhere, and you don't necessarily, like, what are you gonna get with that haul right now?
Right.
You know what I mean? For, like, obviously his value's high, but like, what are you looking for? A scorer right now, and you're willing to sacrifice that chemistry and that, spot that's looked so good next to Faber. So I don't know. I'm perfectly fine keeping Middleton right now, as as long as he's going to keep playing with Faber for the foreseeable future. And like I said, there's other guys. There's Chisholm. There's Bogosian. There's other guys that you can get rid of first if you really need.
And I think too, like, you have to look, like, I love Jonas Brodin as a defenseman, but the guy has had some bad luck with injuries. Like, I think
how many years does he have? Like a year or two left?
Yeah, he's got a couple years left on his deal, but I think he's missed, between like 10 and 15 games per season. Like, if all of a sudden now your option behind him is, a rookie in Zeev Buium, or it's a Zach Bogosian, or it's a Declan Chisholm, like, those guys are fine in a pinch, but like, I'd much rather have Jake Middleton in that spot, especially on the deal that he's on at whatever it is, $4.5 million. Like, when the cap goes,
he's like 28, right? Like, he's still so young. Like,
and he's a guy that's shown he can eat big minutes. Like, is he always effective in those minutes? No. Like, in a perfect world, he's probably your number 5. But like, if he's your number 4, he's number 4 probably on 26 teams in the NHL.
But
like, there's probably a couple teams where he's
number
not,
2, just like Zuccarello's number 2 next to Kaprizov. Like, dude,
for sure.
Like, when chemistry happens in this game, like, especially at this level, like, you roll with it.
Yeah, and we've seen him now.
Alex Burrows played with the Sedins, bro. Alex fucking Burrows. No disrespect, but like, bro.
Well, and we've seen it now with him too. Like, it's been with with Spurgeon last year, and now Faber this year. Like, he clicks with those right-handed shots, and you need that. So could you get a big haul? I mean, unless like what you're getting back can replace him effectively, then
that's what I mean. Yeah, like, can you get a guy as cheap as him that's as good as him, that has the same chemistry with Faber? And it's just like, if you have it, why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Why risk it, for sure?
But I'm not disputing that you wouldn't get a good haul from right now, because he has value, especially right now. He's playing at the top of his game.
Yeah. This one from Noworiak. The Wild should stash 97 on season-ending LTIR, a la Kucherov and Stone, and load up with 2 more top 6 forwards and make a run.
The good old Patty Kane rule.
Yeah. I don't think for him, it's that there's not enough. We already said, like, he could be back. He could miss 6 games.
Yeah.
As much as that would be cool. I want to make sure the Wild get to the playoffs first. And I think the more games he can play, the better I feel about getting there as well.
Yeah. And I do think they're going to make the playoffs. Like I said, they'd have to like lose out bad this final half.
Yeah. This one kind of building off our discussion on the last question here. What are your ideal starting 6 defensemen next year versus what are your realistic starting defensemen next year? Are they the same? Or are they different? Mine's probably different because it involves Bogosian in the press box.
Well, I'm okay with that as well, but like, it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I think my ideal top 6 is the same top 4 that they have now when healthy. So Brodeen, Faber, Middleton, Spurgeon. And then my third pair is probably a Buium, Jiricek with Bogosian as the 7th D. I think we're starting to see some cracks in Chisholm's game. So I think I'm a little more out now.
There's value for him right now.
For sure.
They got him for free. So if they move him, they're still lapped. They're like, sweet, we actually like built up this guy's value and we got some good out of it. And you know, whether that's just a pick or that's a sweetener, you know, maybe they do make a run at a guy at the deadline and they're like, that can be a sweetener because realistically, and you know, whatever other pick we want to throw in there, not that they're rich with them this season, but you know.
Yeah. And then to answer the second part, how are they different? I could see a world where Zach Bogosian plays in front of either Buium or Jiricek, at least maybe to start the season. But I think those are the 7 that they're kind of rolling with right now. So,
yeah, no, for sure. Good to see you guys in the live chat. By the way, we're going through hot takes we got for a Puck Your Opinion segment here on Twitter. So we're firing through them right now, but we see your guys' comments. As always, hit up Brett on Twitter each week as we'll do more of these hot take segments. So we'll get you guys involved in this Puck Your Opinion segment. We got a few more to fire through here.
Yeah, here from Reed. He says there's no need for 3 periods. 4 quarters is superior.
Not in hockey, bro.
It would be interesting.
No, this isn't the NFL. Next question.
Well, because my one thing I do wonder, like giving the players that extra whatever that break would be, because you would still probably need the full 20-minute intermission, which one, you're probably making the games longer, which I think I'd be opposed to, like at least time-wise. Like you're looking at probably a 3-hour, like it's a 7-15 puck drop and the game's probably ending.
Momentum is so big in this game too that like, you can't break it up that many times.
I think you would maybe see some like games where players look more energized, but then I also think at the same time, to your point, like there would just be like these momentum shifts that would just die because intermission comes.
Yeah, I don't like that personally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One Martman. Shootouts are a stupid way to give one team 2 points and the other 1 point. We all know it. Might as well instead make it 18 skaters on 18. Each team have 18 to line up.
So I'm going to counter. You know what I'd rather have than a shootout? And I'm one of those who, like, I don't hate the shootout. Like, is it silly? Yeah, but, like, it's on TV. They have to end the game some way. And I've seen shootouts go an hour on television as well. So, like, it's hockey. Again, like, it's truly, like, best on best, right? That, you know, without an international crest. So, like, I don't hate it. Is it a way to end the game for TV? Yes. Do I hate it in international play? Absolutely. But we don't see it in the games that matter, and that's Stanley Cup. So whatever. But my counter is, and it keeps one particular position alive in hockey. Instead of shootout, each team throws their enforcer out there. Best 2 out of 3 rounds, and they just go 1 minute round. They go center ice. And like I said, they basically go full ice wars. If it's one player on the team that like wins those 2 rounds decisively, then you don't need to go to a third. But if they have a good friggin' Donnybrook, then you go to a third round. That ends it. So you are literally fighting for those 2 points. And imagine like how much of like a boost that is to the locker room when they're like, oh my god, dude, this guy beating the shit out of the other guy is gonna decide, you know, potentially a wild card spot. That over a shootout any day.
That'd be crazy because then you have to, from a management, like, hey, do we have to roster this one guy in case we ever go to shootouts?
100%. And the Wild have one coming up, so like we're good, dude. That's where like Rempe goes. Here's my $10 million.
Yeah, right.
Step aside, Bobrovsky.
Yeah. I'm very
plays until he's 45.
Yeah. I'm torn on how I feel about shootouts. Like, to your point, I get it. It needs to be done for TV. Like, I would be fine if after overtime games ended in ties. If you want to keep the shootout, though, I do propose a 3-2-1 point system where it's 3 points for the regulation win, 2 points for overtime or a shootout.
Yeah, I like that too.
Because I think at times you see like I've seen teams, especially if you're the team that like maybe you were down 2 goals and you tie the game, like that team then plays for overtime. Like they're not trying to win it in regulation at that point. Like, okay, we got back, we tied the game. Let's go get at least the 1 point, right?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe limited some of that of like, hey, now if we score another one, now it's 3 points guaranteed, so it's a little bit different. But yes, I agree. My dad and I have talked about that. I think if you implement like the NBA rule where once you go past half court, like you can't bring it back over, I think that'd be awesome
Back
for
and a back and a back, just waste time.
yeah,
until the
because
shootout.
I think that's what made 3-on-3 fun when we first got it. Is teams didn't think about doing that, like
They just went all
regrouping.
gas, no breaks.
Yeah, and it was
And
just
if they turned it over, it was over. And
Right.
like
Yeah, and it was
games
just
ended so quickly because
and it was just
yeah.
fire wagon, like odd man rushes. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it.
And
Like
now
that's
you got
fun.
Quinn Hughes just being like, wait for it, wait for it, wait
Yeah.
for it, wait for it.
So yeah, I do think that would be a good amendment to overtime rules. Like, hey, you can't bring it past the red line. Like, get your shot off and then get back and defend. Because it also makes line changes more strategic, right? Like to figure out of like, all right, we have to sustain this pressure, sub
But
one
then
guy
are you
out.
just complicating the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's pretty easy, but
Yeah. 3-on-3 is already kind of, it's just pawn hockey at that point.
All right, next one.
Yeah, we got 4 more after this.
All right, from Veggie Kales. Goalies should become normal players if they leave the crease. You can check them, etc.
Yes.
If they play the puck outside the crease, ditch the trapezoid. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree
Yes.
completely here.
Oh, yes. Bring back friggin' 70s style. 100%.
Yeah. And like, it's a little bit of a judgment call. Like, I don't think you should be able to like full speed blast the goalie, but if like he wants to stand there and post up behind the net, you should be able to skate through him and steal the puck or nudge him off. The same as you would like.
You put yourself here, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. When you're in the confines of your crease, I can't touch you. But if you leave the crease, you're free game. So yeah, I agree. And then like
Jacob Trouba's just salivating at that comment.
Yeah. And I think the trapezoid, like I'm indifferent on that, but like I could see the excitement of and the benefit of having a good goalie who can play the puck and helping with breakouts and those kinds of things. Like I wouldn't be opposed to eliminating the trapezoid.
Oh, could you imagine back in Mike Smith's day with no trapezoid? There's one thing Mike Smith did well was handle the puck with a goalie stick.
Feels like the Wild play a more complete game without KK97 on the ice. So this kind of goes back to our analytics segment, I think, a little bit. It's like I think it maybe looks that way sometimes because they have to play so good defensively to
and they're
win.
Rolling 4 lines, like you said. The fourth line, was it second in ice time tonight?
Third.
Third. Okay, well, but still, you know
yeah.
what I mean. Like they're rolling the 4 lines versus just leaning on Kaprizov's line.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 4 tonight were 12:42, 11, 9.5, 8:09. Like pretty for the most part, like equal distribution. Where sometimes that is like the first line 15, the fourth line like 6, right? Where tonight it was 4 minutes different, which probably made like it's what one maybe 2 shifts more a period. I think that makes sense. Wild get hot and finish 22-4-6 in the final 32 games and finish second in the Central. Well, if they keep playing the way they are now and Kaprizov hits the early end of the timeline,
it's possible.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities.
What the first half of the season, like the first chunk of the season, looked like, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I would love 10 wins in the final, 22 in the final 32. Would be great. Did we kind of talk about this? This is sort of some of the offsides one.
Right.
Is that review should only be done in real time, and there's a 60-second limit on reviews.
So someone already brought this up as well.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Dylan_Johns_son. All right, last one.
Last one here from Nannerson. Matt Boldy is a better hockey player when Kirill is out. He's a first-line player hidden in the lineup. I think this is kind of like a confirmation bias in a way almost. Is like, I think when Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov are both going at the same time, because Matt Boldy is kind of the second fiddle, it's not talked about as much, right? Like if Kaprizov has a 10-game point streak and Boldy has a 7, like people are only going to talk about Kaprizov. So I think it might feel magnified when Kaprizov's out because it's, okay, Kaprizov's out. Who's the next man up? Now it's Boldy. So I think it's more visible, I think, that he is better when Kaprizov is out because we, like you said, I agree with your second point that he's a first-line player kind of hidden. I don't necessarily agree that he's a better player when Kirill is out.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. People are just, I don't know. And I think it's just been hidden. Like, people have just been so critical of his streakiness this year again. But I don't know. The good outweighs the bad in my opinion, and he's still pretty young. Where it's like, I don't know. It's everything's there, and for the most part, he puts together a pretty complete game. So
he still really hasn't had a outside of the stretch last year where it was Ek and Kaprizov, where he's had like a complete line with him. It's always like,
that's something too. I think we I mean,
you
brought
it's
up last week.
Kevin Fiala, but then it's also Freddie Gaudreau, and then it's Eriksson Ek, but it's also Marcus Johansson, right? It's like, and then all of a sudden, the one time we see him with two complete players to like really form a true power line, he drives that line, and it just the points just pile up. So that's why I'm hoping like maybe this development from Liam Ogren maybe solidifies that spot for him potentially. Yeah, I mean, if it works, it works, right? Yeah, so like I think, I'd love to see, because we talked about, I think, in one of the very first episodes of the show, beginning of the year, when I did my ideal lines, I cited why I wanted Ogren on that line, and I think we're seeing the confidence build for him. And maybe it's similar to that when Boldy got Fiala, or Fiala got Boldy. Maybe now it's turning the favor. Boldy gets Ogren, right? So,
and hopefully that sticks.
Yeah, we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. There we go. Trade Boldy. All right. Well, we did it, Brett. Jam-packed show. A lot to talk about. Good start to the road trip. They get to take a little bit of a break now before playing the Senators. But I saw that you had some player cards that dropped, and tell us where we can find your blog.
Yeah, all that can be find me on X, Twitter, at @B_Marsh92. Newsletter, just for the sheer fact that I am very busy. We're getting a puppy in a couple months now, so I'm busy getting things puppy-proofed around the house and built. So my free time is just not what I thought it was going to be. So the newsletter is probably going to a monthly project now, so I can kind of chip away at it here and there. Player cards, trying to get those up after games. Got a little behind. I will probably do the ones for tonight right after we hop off the live here, but trying to get those up at least, if not the night of the next day. So
there you go. I just shared the link to your blog in the live chat. Go check it out, ladies and gentlemen. It's also in the description of this video and this live stream. If you guys are listening via podcast, thank you so much for supporting the Sota Pod feed. Every Friday this will drop. And
before we jump off, we have the Friedman update on the trade. So it's Kuzmenko and Pelletier for Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost.
Okay.
So
Morgan Frost, big name. Farabee, decent.
There could be more to it, but yeah, I think to me that seems like Calgary making a push to win more now, which is weird. But I think it's a hockey trade. Like, I don't see one side. I think Philly does a good job in getting two younger players to kind of build their core around, but Calgary helps them maybe make a push for the playoffs the way they like their game right now. So we can maybe talk about that one more once we get the full details. Hockey headlines next week.
There you
go. There's your teaser for next week.
Hell yeah. Well, we already got some to add to the outline. I'll be streaming all weekend, ladies and gentlemen. I do live watch parties on my Combat Sports YouTube channel. I guess it's my other YouTube channel, the City Light Project, where I cover combat sports every weekend. We got UFC Abu Dhabi on Saturday, so it's at 10 a.m. Eastern. So we'll be up covering that. Tomorrow I'll be up at 7:30 a.m. Eastern to cover some Muay Thai. It's free on One Championships YouTube channel if you like crazy knockouts. I mean, 4-ounce glove friggin' ties with like 200 fights under their belt at 21 years old. Nothing gets better than that if you don't have to work Friday morning. Or even if you do, put it on in the background. But anyways, that's it for us here today. Like and subscribe. Brett, final word goes to you.
See you next week.